And so now this recording will be specifically on the golden line. And the golden line is something that I will talk about in many different ways. When we start to get into, if you choose to get into more of the physical movement, the physical hydrostasy, then we will really talk about the golden line. But if I had to talk about where the golden line came from, it really came from a desire to have better posture, to have a body that isn't fighting itself. So a body that is at peace, from a mind that is at peace without attempting to control. That can get a bit tricky. So one thing that I noticed in Tai Chi is that Tai Chi is supposed to be based on non-resistance. It's supposed to be based on adapting, not attempting to control. And then it's just interwoven with constant attempts to control. I don't know how that occurred, but in the history that is Tai Chi history, it was based around allowing, and at some point or another, maybe not all Tai Chi, but a lot of Tai Chi is incorporating straight up manipulation and trying to control the body. So we're not going to do that. What I have learned to do is simply place my attention into certain areas of the body, and then just like everything else, it naturally begins to align. Does that make sense? So this is also going to go hand in hand with fox walking, and I think I start touching on it in fox walking and in 4 modes, because the golden line are physical points in the body. And if these physical points are aligned, then when we get to seers training, when we get down the road, you're going to start to see that the physical energy flows in the body a certain way. So I don't want to get too mystical or, so I guess I'll save this. And then I'll erase this. All right, so the first 3 points in the golden line. And so I'm going to draw the line. So this is, oh, Kobe said he's going to the Big Ten tournament. That's cool. All right, so the first line is in my forehead. I got a big forehead, folks. Hold on. I think that's too big. That's too big of a circle. My forehead's not that big. Okay, that's better. All right, so that's my forehead. This is.
Are you describing?
Yes.
Are you describing your golden line practice,
yes.
principle?
Yes.
Something that you
yes.
just. But is it a principle or practice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this is my chest, and this is my dantian. Boy, my circles are all screwed up. Hold on a second. Okay. That's the dantian, and Ernest has 2 feet and 2 legs. Beep you. All right. This is not the scale. And then so I have 2 points of attention on my feet. And so in practice, I am simply placing my attention on these points. Okay, so I have, and ultimately, Jerry, one thing I am looking is to have these 3 points of the head, the chest, and the dantian to be reasonably overlapping, to be, you want them to somewhat be on top of each other. So small alterations and then back to the practice of the world around you. Small alterations, and so I want to write that. That's important. So this is how I interact with the points. Small alterations and then back to points of attention. So one thing that the human mind does is it gets on this erroneous time scale. So let's say Gene all of a sudden realizes that he wants better posture. Well, what better thing to do than try to force, manipulate, and control himself into better posture, right? No, that will lead to tension in more than one area. So what I'm recommending to do is what I'm going to do right now. Place my attention on my golden line and then back to my practice of the world around me. I don't keep it there. I don't focus too much on these points in my body. I bring attention there, I make sure it's aligned, and then I go back to other aspects of my practice. Does that make sense? So can everybody put their attention on their forehead? Are you capable of doing that? One thing could help, touch it. So you can touch your third eye, you could touch your forehead, and you can feel that, right? You can feel that area of your body. This could be tricky for the trucker. And we're just using that as an abstract example. I'm sure there are many truckers who are in sync with their own body, but somehow we have arrived at that example. But you have your chest, and so notice my chest is not caved in. It's not poking out. I'll just make a small adjustment, square, and then to the dantian. And now I have these 3 points active, and now I'm going back to my tricks of attention elsewhere. Breathing, light sources, defocused vision, maybe my palms, I'm paying attention to this point. Maybe my elbows, I have my elbows tucked behind me and I'm paying attention to that point. Areas of attention I never ever, no matter the weather, will put my attention on are my shoulders and my neck. I do not, or my knees and stuff like that. I do not put attention there. Yeah, equals outie. And that focus, yes, more physical alignment for more physical flow of physical energy without trying to control and manipulate. And you're not trying to do anything with the chi. You're not trying to do anything with anything. Points of attention, small adjustment, back to tricks of attention. And that's the golden line. That's how the golden line practice begins. When you begin your fox walking, where is your golden line? Go back to your other tricks of attention. While you're fox walking, where's your golden line? Back to your tricks of attention. You're waiting for the other person to serve. Where is your golden line? Because maybe your posture while you're waiting isn't very good. And so that could, mess you up when you're going into the serve. So maybe paying attention to those in-between moments, like when you're golfing. It's not just when you're swinging. We need to pay attention to our posture throughout the whole game. Otherwise, by the time we get to 16, 17 holes, our body is going to feel like crap because we were stooping and we were leaning and we weren't paying attention. Not paying much attention to precision. You don't have to start at any one point of attention. There's no order of operations for that. You could start with the chest. You could start with the forehead. I just kind of started with that and went down. But you don't have to. So if you put your attention on the forehead, on the chest, and on the dantian, then you're starting to establish your golden line. And dantian is about 2 inches below the belly button and about 2 inches towards the center of the body. So it's inside the body. Or you can just feel your belly. That's fine too. Literally, you just put your hand on your belly and then you can feel your hand touching it. That counts. That will help to create the sensation and the feeling over time.
I haven't heard that in a while. 2 inches below the belly button.
Yes, it's not the belly button itself. It's actually the dantian. The Chinese dantian is located below the belly button. And we're borrowing that. I'm borrowing the Chinese dantian. I hope the Chinese don't mind. This is not traditional Chinese medicine, though. I'm still stealing it. So just like with fox walking, just like with other aspects, this is a practice. So it is a practice. Where is my golden line and did I put it there? The key is to not focus too much. Like we're not looking to focus too much on any one point. Focus on multiple points, alternate between different points, focus on the whole body. Some points that could be really good to focus on in the beginning are your feet. Every time your feet touch the ground. If this was hydrostasy and we were doing a one-on-one, I would tell Gene, today, pay attention to your feet. That's your goal. That's what I want you to do. So today, pay attention to your feet with every step. And then when we meet tomorrow or when we meet next week, let's talk about that. What were the challenges? How often did you remember? What occurred when you remembered? Let's start talking about those things. And that will also start to establish fox walking, 4 modes practice, and deliberate driving, because you drive with your feet as well. So the golden line is something that will start to be I'll build upon it, especially in hydrostasy, but the more that we go along, the more I'll start to build on this golden line. Does that make sense? In the beginning, it is just a point of attention. It is just aligning the human body. Later, it can be the way that I describe of how one of the ways of issuing personal power, conscious creation through physical structure and attention. Mainly attention. The physical structure occurs on its own. So it's really, again, just attention itself.
And you can feel a feeling in the golden line inside your body.
And you can too. I think that's why you asked the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's just when you described it and you said you adjust small adjustments and then go back to your other tricks. I was assuming that when you write your note card out in the morning and the golden line is on it, that you're attempting to put your attention on the golden line at all times.
So that's not the goal, but that could be a result. So Ida, so what the golden line does is it creates a physical structure. And you're doing the physical structure through the small adjustments and then back to other tricks of attention. Eventually, hydrostatic effect is what I feel from the golden line. And it is paying attention to the golden line, but the bottom line, and I'll just say this, the hydrostatic effect occurs when you are aware of your entire body, and you are aware of your entire body presently. So I am aware of my entire body right now. Does that mean I'm aware of my toenail? No, because that's a focus of attention. That's the aperture. I'm aware of my whole body in space and time, and that helps to create what I call the hydrostatic effect. The hydrostatic effect and my body in space and time came from paying attention to the golden line. Does that make sense? I'm activating it.
Yes, that's where you began.
Yes.
That's where you began. And then the feeling that comes from that, I suppose to the layman, could be described as a feeling of well-being, because you're
maybe. I want to get away from describing. So the only thing that I would describe in terms of feeling is peace. Everything that comes from peace could be, so you could be doing your golden line and maybe your best dog friend has transitioned to something new. So you're not going to be necessarily feeling, happiness. Your best dog friend just transitioned to something new. Why would you be feeling happy? But you could still be feeling peace, love, connection, joy, compassion, empathy, understanding. All of that could still be occurring with the sadness. That's hydrostasy. As long as there's peace, everything else will follow. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, and it can be felt. And Ida, I don't want to beat around the bush. Yes, it does generally feel like happiness and well-being. Yes. But there's also a lot of other feelings involved. And sometimes it seems like memory, because when we were younger, we did have this tendency of engaging the world around us. When we were younger, we were playing with our imagination. Where is that imagination? We're putting it, where's the ship? The ship is right there. You know, where's the anchor? Well, the anchor is right here. So we're using our imagination over the present moment, and that's a type of engagement and a feeling of freedom and joy and well-being and creativity. Those feelings come. And then when we have them as adults, we're like, oh my God, I remember what this is. So it's occurring again, different but similar. So we get those remembering of those feelings of what it was like when we were free, when we were kids, and we had that active imagination, or yeah. So that's why sometimes it seems like a memory, because we accessed it accidentally or conditionally before. Now we're accessing it unconditionally, simply as a direction of our attention. And Ida, I will say, when we get towards the seer's practice, you can create moods, and and this is a lot like deliberate modulation, but I can create how I want to feel. And sometimes how I want to feel, you know, I'll kind of condition that, and I'll use the golden line to do that. So basically, happiness is a direction of my attention. Personal power, the desire to create focus, is just a matter of my attention. That's kind of getting down the road a little bit in the practice, the accumulation of this practice. Does that make sense? Any questions about that?
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
So as I'm sitting, do you guys notice something about my posture? My shoulders are down. That's on purpose. One reason my shoulders are down is because I'm paying attention to the point of elbow. My elbows are placed. They didn't arrive accidentally. But I'm not going to sit here and focus on my elbows all day, because then my shoulders will hurt. So I just place, and then my attention goes elsewhere. I'm not trying to control. I'm not trying to achieve perfect posture. That is the act of allowing. The act of allowing is I'm not trying to change anything. It's changing on its own. I'm not trying to achieve perfect posture, but my posture will considerably improve over time the more that I just do my golden line, check in, and back to the practice. Does that make sense? So I'm sitting right now, my chest point, active. My dantian, relaxed, active. So if you came and you felt my body, this is not tense. So my torso is very relaxed. My feet are touching the ground in such a way so that I can feel through my feet. And then I end up sitting, you know, with reasonably good posture. You know, I'm breathing in. You guys have heard me talk about that with the golden line. Breathing into the back of my head. Well, I don't have lungs in the back of my head. So the feeling of breathing kind of creates that elongation of the spine. And it's happening just by using my attention. I'm not really using a lot of muscle and force, maybe just a teensy bit, but then I go back to my practice. Does that make sense? The golden line. Questions about the golden line? I feel like there should be some. I don't know if I've described this to a T, or have I? I don't know. Is that good? Like,
I don't recall it this deep. I was just going to comment that I've used the term just in the last few weeks for my setup for the day and what my rule of three is going to be. And my rule of three is always, not always, but starts with smooth breath, the golden line. But I wasn't doing it in that same way. I was doing down to the dantian and my ankles. I use that word a lot. Anyway, very like the detail, helped a lot.
Awesome. Although, Jerry, I would love to hear the rule of three, including a mantra or telling yourself true things or the voice of power.
Yeah, I just didn't get that far. My golden line usually includes my ankles, and then I usually go into, I can do this. I like that one.
Yes. And now, just if I could briefly, especially if you do the hydrostatic practice, if you do hydrostasy, I will describe to you, I will take you down the path, I will show you how this is done. But basically what occurs is the golden line becomes active. This is activating. It becomes active because of your attention, not trying to manipulate, not trying to control. This will feel like well-being. It feels like a type of joy running through your body. And the effect. So it creates essentially a bubble of perception around you, because that's what we're doing with our attention. We're engaging the world around us, and it creates what I call this hydrostatic bubble of awareness, of attention. And what I have noticed, and I don't know if it's going to be true for everybody, but it creates a type of effect, a type of shine of energy. And I put that energy behind the head. And it feels as if it is filling the room or filling all space. I don't know how else to describe that, but this is felt, by the way. This is a feeling of balance, a feeling of, moving through things that may not always be desirable, but doing so with balance. And then, of course, this is the movement. This is the movement through balance. Does that make sense? And this is hydrostasy. I have drawn all of this just to describe how I feel. Balanced. I don't like the word under control, but definitely not out of control. So balanced and vibrant and bright. And so if I were to label this, I would label this as the voice of power. Well, actually, it's only a voice when it's being expressed as words. Otherwise, it's just power. And power is just a word, I don't know. It's just a word to describe how it feels. But it feels like alignment. The spirals is what you would feel when you're adapting to things. That's what the spirals represent. So the spirals represent that this is not a stagnant figure of just some guy sitting there on a mountaintop with this energy that he's creating or she is creating, and it's just, oh. So I have added these spirals because that could be cold weather that you have to adapt to. That could be space junk landing on your car. Now you have to adapt to that. It's moving, you're adapting. So that's what the spiral represents. And you'll feel that spiral as you're adapting to things. You might not feel it right now because you might not have anything right now that you need to, move and adapt to. But when you're in flow and you're moving and you're adapting, you can feel that spiral. You can feel that connection. Or it can be felt. I don't want to say you can feel it. It can be felt. Does that make sense? And then there's still a whole other aspect of when we make this connection and we start to feel the world around us. Now we're getting into Seers trading. We're way down the road now in what we're talking about. But I ignored it. There were several times, even in the last 3 or 4 months, where I felt it in my body and I chose to ignore it out of habit, out of conditioning, out of social construct. And it bit me, meaning I suffered from it. So there's this whole other aspect of when we actually learn to listen to inner guru, when we actually learn to listen to our body, when we're in alignment in a situation in the present moment and when we're out of alignment in a situation in the present moment. That can be felt, especially when there's no cognition. We're not thinking about it. We're not thinking our way in and out of a feeling, but we're able to feel it in conjunction with the world around us. It feels like it's coming from the world around us presently. There were several times over the last few months that I've had that feeling that it's like, Ernest, this action will not benefit you. What you're doing right now is not going to benefit you. And I still did it. I still chose to do it. That was cherry picking. And that cherry picking leads to suffering. I am not exempt to that dynamic. It is a principle.
Golden
All
line.
right. Yes.
I was just going to say golden line for you is point of attention, trick of attention, both. Doesn't matter. Does it matter?
No, that's kind of the same thing. Point of attention and trick of attention it's kind of using different words to describe the same thing. I just think point of attention, some people might not like the word trick. They're like, what am I tricking? I stole that from Don Juan. But point of attention is probably more accurate to psychology and cognition. We're simply choosing our point of attention or points of attention or the aperture of our attention, meaning focused or more broad. We can do both. But yes, so Jerry, it starts as alignment physically using just my attention and small adjustments, just small ones. I'm not looking to change the world here, just a small adjustment. So if I feel myself sitting like this, I'm not going to continue to sit like this. I'm going to make the small adjustment and go back to other tricks of attention so that I don't over focus on that. And yeah, I'll be using that term much more as I go along because so I have in Counterbalance a whole part 2 of the Golden Line. This is an introduction to the Golden Line. In Counterbalance, I'll talk about the Golden Line because you can use the Golden Line to counterbalance when you're experiencing things in your life experience.
And for somebody like me who's hearing this differently today, I might use the Golden Line more as a point of attention for my day, as opposed to, it sounds like you've practiced it enough, you attend it, and then you move on to other things. Whereas for me to build some momentum with it, I'd probably want to use it throughout the day as my point of attention. Would that be accurate?
At least one point could be, yes. Yeah. So if you wanted to make, what's that, Jerry?
I just thought the forehead, chest, dantian, feet, arms, elbows, it looks like the little dot. It was more a complete point. It's a complete.
It can get that way. If you feel that, then yes, by all means. So when all those points are connected, it's whole body awareness. More peripheral, the whole body. Does that make sense, Jerry?
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, this has been interesting for me today personally. I've missed some classes.
Yep.
You know.
Well, I am going to get those posted. So I'm full time now. So I'm definitely okay. So are there any more questions about the Golden Line? And then I'm going to go into, so we did some review, we did the topic, and then I'm going to just go into some things ahead, some things that I'll be doing moving forward. But are there any more questions about the Golden Line? So the bottom line about the Golden Line is that the Golden Line can start as points of attention. You can start to synchronize and link those points of attention. Eventually, and this is kind of getting ahead of our discussion, but eventually the link will lead to whole body awareness. And with enough whole body awareness of paying attention to your body throughout the day, your body becomes an instrument of perception to where your body can feel the world around you without thought, without thinking about it. So that's an important point too, is that the thought isn't required. It still may occur. The thought, don't go down that alley, may still occur, but it wasn't necessary. If that makes sense. Does that make sense, Jerry?
Yes. And then to add to that, I guess I would say I have quite a bit of momentum with Rule of 3 that just when I say that term to myself, it's pretty instantaneous before I move on. Mm-hmm. It's just the moment I say Rule of 3, Jerry, it's just instantaneous. It's a complete thing, whereas I don't have that with the Golden Line, which I'm having a desire to do that.
So now I would go back a step and use productive self-dialogue to talk out your Golden Line to yourself. You can also talk out your rule of three. I highly encourage that. I am present. I am mindful. I have this point of attention. I have this point of attention. I am present. That's a productive form of self-dialogue. You're essentially pointing back to your practice with your own speech. You may not need it, but it can still reinforce your practice. I'll do that. I'll do that all the time if I need to. I'll talk it out. Does that make sense? Yeah, you can talk it through after you decide to place your attention there. Yep. All right, any questions, comments, or concerns about that?